Hi, I'm Stephanie. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I am going to be tier ranking all of my 2023 reads of all the videos that I have wanted to post in starting my YouTube channel at the beginning of the year. This is the one that I am absolutely the most excited for. I am just going to jump right into explaining all of the tiers when we get into the video. I just wanted to say hi, I'm Stephanie. I make reading vlogs and other book content. I just started my YouTube channel this year, and the support means the world to me. But yeah, I'm just gonna get right into the tier ranking. I hope that you enjoy the video, and yeah, that's all I have. Top tier is Inject This Into My Bloodstream. Amazing book, top of my list, favorite of the year. Next, great read, would recommend. It's a good book. I would recommend it either to all people, most people, or a certain group of people. This year gave what it needed to give. These are for books that, maybe they weren't the best writing, maybe they weren't the best story, but it gave what it needed to give at the time, whether it's that I needed entertainment or something mindless. It gave what it needed to give, nothing more, nothing less. Next here is iffy. Books that are a little questionable. It's not the worst thing I've ever read. It's not the bottom of my list, but it's iffy. It's just a little bit questionable. And then last here is Just No. These are books that I just did not like. No redeemable qualities, just simply no. All right. So starting off here, we have A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. I'm going to put this in great read, would recommend. This was a thriller. It was well written. I liked it. Ace of Spades, this is where it starts. Inject This Into My Bloodstream. I loved this book. This was like Get Out meets Gossip Girl. Loved it. All right, now we're going into the Addicted series, which I don't know. I've read 3 of the books in the Addicted series, and I don't know if I'm going to continue with it, to be honest. So I think I'm going to put Addicted for now and Addicted to You and iffy. They're just like, they are nice, like little romance reads for when you just want something that feels like a reality show, but I've also read other ones like that are more in the gave what it needed to give tier. All Good People here. I liked this at first when I first read it, but then I found out that the author is a true crime podcaster, and I saw someone compare this book to a very, very famous case, like real case, and it does kind of seem like she just copied it. So I'm gonna put that into iffy. All the Dangerous Things, Inject. This is another Stacy Willingham thriller, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the writing, loved the storytelling. Anon, Please. Oh, this is the Dumois book. Did it give what it needed to give? No, it was just iffy. I wasn't really happy with it, to be honest. Apples Never Fall gave what it needed to give. It's a domestic, not thriller. It's like a drama, and I just saw that it is coming to, I think, Hulu as a limited series, which I'll definitely watch. I'm curious about it. Arch Enemies. Honestly, the entire Renegade series really did give what it needed to give. They were not my absolute favorite, but I did read them quickly, and they're like a nice little mindless read. Baby Teeth, Just No. This is like one of the most boring thrillers I've ever read. Beartown. Oh man, what do I do? Because when I read Beartown at first, I was not sold on it, but then this year I read Us Against You and I loved it. I think I'm gonna put this into great read, would recommend, because I would recommend it. I just would recommend looking at the trigger warnings too. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I like this book. I'm putting it in great read, would recommend. This gives me such a similar vibe to The Midnight Library. I think that if you liked that book, you would like this book, and if you didn't really like that book, I would kind of stay away from this one. Belladonna was iffy. It was iffy. It was just, I don't know. It didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. It didn't go the way I wanted to go, and then I read something about it that really creeped me out. So it was kind of hard to get past that. Caraval, I like the Caraval trilogy. I'm going to put it in great read, would recommend. Only because you obviously have to read that to get to the second book, which I would really put in that, but you have to read it. So did it give what it needed to give, or was it? No, I'm gonna put it in great read, would recommend. Carrie Soto's Back was one of my favorite books I read this year. Love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I cried. Inject it into my bloodstream. And same with Crooked Kingdom. Obsessed with that book. Oh, Magnolia Park. So we get into Daisy Hates. I'm gonna put both the Daisy Hates books in great read, would recommend. Granted, I would only recommend them to a certain group of people, but I would recommend them to the people who I think would like the books. I honestly think about Magnolia Parks like all the time. I cannot wait for the Into the Dark to come out. Daisy Jones and the Six, great read, would recommend. It's not my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid that I've ever read, but I do really like it. Divine Rivals, loved. Inject this into my bloodstream. One of my favorite romantices that I've ever read. So romantic, so great. Ruthless Vows is a little bit of a different story, but we'll get there when we get there. Don't Let Her Stay, just know. This book had its moment, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really understand why, because I thought that it was the most like poorly written, predictable thriller that I've kind of ever read. No offense. Every Last Word. I liked it at the time, but the more I think about it, it became iffy. There was amazing representation of mental illness, and then also a very strange representation at the same time. I did like the book though, but it's a little bit iffy. Exodus, I gave what it needed to give. I read Flock as well, which we'll get to. I didn't read the last book. This is the Ravenhood trilogy, and I needed some straight up just pure entertainment, and Exodus, the second book specifically, gave me that. But Flock, I see Flock down here, so I'm just gonna do it. Flock was iffy. Flock was a little more iffy. I don't know though, it kind of did give. Oh, am I gonna arrange these like in order? Oh. Okay, if so, I'm gonna put Flock here. And Exodus is gonna go here. This is gonna go here. This will go here. This will go here. That I'll keep. This I'll move up here. And these, I'm not gonna organize these. These are all just gonna be inject because they're all favorites. Finale, great read. Would recommend. Last book in the Caraval trilogy. The Finlay Donovan books, I don't know. I think I'm gonna put them in gave what they needed to give right now in the last kind of part of that, because I did like them, but I started to read the third one and I just was like, no. So I'm not going to continue the series. There were parts of them that I didn't really like. The cop romance, I've discussed this, so I'm going to put it in gave what it needed to give. And honestly, Fourth Wing, I rated this 5 stars at the beginning of the year, but not at the beginning of the year when I read it, but as I really think about it and I really reflect on the writing, I think that I'm going to put it at the top of gave what it needed to give, because there are fantasy books that I would recommend over this, but it is like such an easy and quick read. Happy Place was just not for me. I know that people love this book. I did not love it. So I'm going to put it, I think, here in iffy, behind the Addicted series. Heartless gave what it needed to give, and I'm going to put it, like, maybe here. It's a Queen of Hearts retelling. It was a really, really fun yeah, just fairy tale retelling. But it's not the best book that I've ever read. Heartstopper is a great read. I would recommend it. It's a graphic novel. You really can't go wrong. Hidden Pictures, I'm gonna put that at the end of Gave What It Needed to Give before Finley Donovan. This was a paranormal thriller, and the paranormal part just wasn't necessarily for me. I Will Find You, Harlan Coben. This is a domestic thriller, and I would say it gave what it needed to give, and I'm gonna put it here. Above Apples, but below Exodus. If We Were Villains, I felt like that was a great read, and I would recommend it to certain people. I'm gonna put it though at the end because the Shakespeare aspect was kind of a lot, I'm not gonna lie, but it was a good book. Imogene, obviously, great read. Would recommend. It's so cute. It's a YA, queer, kind of coming of age. Wasn't a ton of romance in it. It was more so that. And I am going to put that... I just realized, though, that finale should be here. And I'm going to put Imogene here. Okay. Inkblood Sister Scribe. Love this. Inject this into my bloodstream. I can't believe that I didn't see more people talking about this. It's a standalone fantasy book. I got it from Book of the Month and I loved it. It Ends With Us was one of my least favorite books I read this year. I'm not elaborating. And Jar of Hearts was another one that I wasn't a fan of, but I wouldn't put it to just no. I think I'm just gonna put it at the end of Iffy. It was just not my favorite thriller. Just As You Are, this one gave what it needed to give, and I'm gonna put it pretty high up there. It's a queer kind of literary fiction book. It advertises itself as a romance, but I don't really agree with that. I'm gonna put it here. Legendary was my favorite of the Caraval books, so I'm gonna put it first in Great Read Would Recommend, but obviously you have to read Caraval first. Legends and Lattes gave what it needed to give. It was just a cute, low-stakes, cozy fantasy. It reminded me of the kind of books that I would read as a kid. I'm gonna put it here. Yes, that feels right. Lessons in Chemistry, oof, I feel so mixed about this. I actually really liked this book, but also there were parts of it that were a little bit cringy, and I listened to it on audio, and I think I had a much better experience doing that. I think if I would have read it, I don't know if I would have finished the book, but I do think that it was a great read, and I think that I would recommend it to certain people. So I am going to put it here above If We Were Villains. Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home, and Magnolia Parks are going right up here next to the Daisy Hates books, but I actually preferred the Daisy Hates books to the Magnolia Parks books, minus the footnotes that drove me mad. But I'm going to put these right here. I like the first book more than the third book. I feel like everyone likes The Long Way Home the best out of the whole series, and that was not my favorite at all. That was my least favorite. Oh, okay. Mary Jane was a great read. I would definitely recommend it. So cute, so good. I'm gonna actually put that first because I did rate it 5 stars. Mistakes Were Made gave what it needed to give. It was a age gap lesbian romance. I ate it up. At the time, there were parts of it that were a little iffy, but not enough to put it into the actual iffy category. So I'm gonna put it here. Yes. I did not like Never Lie. I know that a lot of people love that book. It was one of my least favorite thrillers that I read. I'm going to put it under iffy behind Jar of Hearts because it wasn't as bad as those 3. But it was definitely not my fave. New Moon, I reread Twilight and New Moon this year, and both of them were just so iffy. I think that is understandable. No Exit, I could not stand this book. I think it's actually gonna go under Just No for me, because the use of hate speech in this book like really threw me off. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, I absolutely loved. Inject This Into My Bloodstream, I'm gonna put it, oh yeah, that's right, I'm not ranking these, so that's just going in here. Once Upon a Broken Heart, I am so mixed on how I feel about this trilogy. I read the first one last year, I read the second one this year, and I do not like it as much as Caraval so far, so I'm gonna put it and gave what it needed to give, but I'm gonna put it at the top. One Last Stop, I actually loved this book, and I know that some people don't, but I would recommend it, and I'm going to put it behind Imogene, I think. Yes. Play the Fool gave what it needed to give. It was a thriller that had, it was like a tarot card reader as the main character. Cop romance in this one, trigger warning. So I'm gonna put it like right here above Finley. Really good, actually, was a Just No. I could not stand this book. It was a totally insufferable main character, and not in the way of, like, she makes the book interesting, in the way of, like, it's actually miserable to read from her point of view. But I didn't hate it as much as these. So, let's go in here. Oh, Inject Red, White, and Royal Blue Into My Bloodstream. I am a fan. I do not care what anyone says. I love that book. Don't watch the movie. Renegades is going right up here next to Arch Enemies. This was, first book was my favorite out of all of them, so it's gonna go there. Yeah, Ricochet is the other book, the second book in the Addicted series that I read, and I'm gonna put it here because it was my least favorite out of the three, but it was definitely iffy. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I liked this thriller. I know that it's very hit or miss for people, but I would recommend it because it was so fast-paced, and I'm actually gonna put it above Flicker in the Dark. Oh, Ruthless Vows. It gave what it needed to give because it was the end of the Divine Rivals duology, but I honestly liked Divine Rivals so much more. Sadie's a really interesting book. It's a YA thriller, and there were parts of it that I really liked. Parts of it that I could not stand. But when I look at it, the place that feels right is right about here. So it gave what it needed to give. Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonham Young is a 160-page holiday queer romance novella. It is a great read. I would absolutely recommend it. I'm going to put it in the top. I can't put it really in Inject because it's only 160 pages, and that just feels kind of unfair. But I absolutely adored it. Seven Dirty Secrets. This was an extremely mid YA thriller that I never think about. And I'm gonna put it here in iffy. Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This is an objectively really good book. It just made my stomach hurt. The material, the topic is one that's really hard for me to read about, and it's so hard because it really didn't give what it needed to give for me, but it is a good read, and I would recommend it to certain people, so I'm gonna put it then right there. Shatter Me was so iffy. I'm so sorry. I've only read the first book in the series. I just was really intrigued, and I don't know if I'm gonna continue. I might try. I'm actually even gonna put it behind. I'm gonna put it right here, right there. Oh my god, She Gets the Girl. Obsessed. Immediately injected into my bloodstream. One of my favorite books that I read this year. So cute. Six of Crows was a great read, and I would definitely recommend it. It was not as good as Crooked Kingdom, but you have to read it to get there. And now going back, I realize I should have read Shadow and Bone first, and I would have had an easier time understanding Six of Crows when I first read it, because I had a really hard time getting it at first, not gonna lie. But once I got it, I loved it. Someone Else's Shoes, that gave what it needed to give. I mean, it was just like kind of a feel-good fiction. It had a really good depiction of female friendships, which I remember really enjoying. So I think I'm gonna put it here. Yes. And Supernova will go right next to the other Renegades books. It was my least favorite of the three. Oh my god, The Appeal. Don't even get me honestly started on this book, because I really, really liked this book until I got to the end. It's a thriller that's told all in transcript of like email, texts, and phone calls, and you're kind of like trying to figure out what happened. Love that concept. But I actually didn't understand the ending to the point where I have gone back and read it multiple times, the ending, over the last few months, and I still have yet to understand. And so I'm gonna put it in iffy for that reason. But because I really liked the book up until that point, I'm gonna put it here. The Atlas Six. I was not obsessed with the Atlas Six. I liked it when I read it, and I tried to read the Atlas Paradox, and I've tried to read the Atlas Paradox twice now, and I've DNF'd it twice. And I think it's kind of making me look back on the Atlas Six a little less fondly. But I am going to say that it gave what it needed to give, because it was interesting. It just was a little, like, I don't know, not for me. I'm not going to put it here. But Finlay Donovan. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I absolutely loved. I listened to this on audio with my girlfriend. Obviously, it's the prequel to the Hunger Games books, so you need to read those first. But once you do, I would highly recommend. The Best of Friends was another like iffy thriller. This is my only Lucinda Berry that I've ever read, and I'm actually very curious to read another one. But for right now, this is going right here. The Conleys of Counting Down, I absolutely despise everything about this book. Even more than those. It's going there. The Daydreams, that gave what it needed to give. It was about like a child star show. I'm gonna put her right here. The Good Lie, this was a thriller I remember really liking, but I don't remember much about it when I think back. But I remember it being really good, so I'm gonna put that here. House in the Cerulean Sea, I loved. Inject, it was so cute, so cozy, so sweet. I just absolutely loved it. The Housemaid gave what it needed to give. This was my second chance for Frida McFadden, and she did redeem herself with this book for me. I am going to put it here, but unfortunately, The Housemaid's Secret was not it, and I'm gonna put it under iffy, and I'm gonna put it here, because it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever read, just in comparison to The Housemaid, I was not a fan of it. The Intern gave what it needed to give. This was a thriller where the writing was not the greatest, and the plot and the pacing was a little bit weird, but the ending was the shit. I absolutely loved the ending, and I loved the characters. So for that reason, it's going right here. Okay, let me... Oh, how am I gonna... Okay, hold on. I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. We'll just see it at the top. Okay. The Kind Worth Killing and The Kind Worth Saving, I absolutely loved those books. They are two of my favorite thrillers that I read this year. They're actually gonna go above Alice Feeney. And I actually liked The Kind Worth Saving, which is the second book, better than The Kind Worth Killing. And The Kind Worth Killing was good, so definitely recommend. The Last Thing He Told Me, I was disappointed by. It was just not, it did not give what it needed to give. It gave very much less than what I wanted it to give. And I am going to put it here. The Last Word, I absolutely could not stand this book. This was my second chance for Taylor Adams, and he failed. And it's going right there. The Maid's Diary, I remember absolutely loving this thriller. I just remember a little bit less about the plot than I do The Kind Worth Saving, The Kind Worth Killing, and Rock, Paper, Scissors, so I'm gonna put it here. But I did really like that book. The Midnight Library, I loved. This is going up to Inject. I was a huge fan of this book. Like I said, I know some people don't like it, but I loved it. The Naturals. I feel like something's wrong with me when it comes to the series because everyone is literally obsessed with it except for me. I read The Naturals and I gave it 3 stars. I just was not as into it as everyone thought. Everyone else made me think I was gonna be. But I did like it more than Finlay Donovan, so I'm gonna put it here. The Night Circus, I loved that book. Not enough for inject it into my bloodstream, but enough where I would probably put it about here. The Only Survivors, for me, this just gave what it needed to give. It was just like a decent, kind of slow-paced thriller. I'm gonna put it here. The Perfect Marriage was another like disappointment similar to The Last Thing He Told Me, and I didn't love the writing. This was definitely iffy. And would I put it above The Housemaid's Secret though? No, I actually think that I would put it here if we're really being honest with ourselves. The Push was a great read and I would definitely recommend it. We will get to Ashley Audrain's other book that I was obsessed with, but The Push was really good. The ending annoyed the shit out of me, but it was still really good. I would put it like right here above the Caraval books. Evelyn Hugo was an inject. Like, I was so obsessed with this book when I first read it, and I still am. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid so much. Okay. The Silent Patient, I feel very strongly that this just simply gave what it needed to give. It was not as amazing as some people say, and it was not as terrible as some other people say. I think that I would put it right here after The Renegades. The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth, I liked this book. I am going to put it in Great Read Would Recommend, and I'm going to put it right before The Good Lie because I really, really liked it. And same with The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. It was a great read. And I'm going to put it actually first in the Great Read Would Recommend category. And then we get to Ashley Audrain's other book, The Whispers, which I was obsessed with, and it is going right there. Oh, Wishing Game was a big fat just no for me. I did not like this book. It gave me the ick, and also I need to know why people are calling this magical realism, because where's the magical realism? I don't understand. It is going to go right about here. The Woman in the Window gave what it needed to give. This was like a half decent thriller to me, but it was like well written enough that it wasn't iffy, but I've heard that this author is a little weird. I'm gonna put this behind The Silent Patient. And Then She Was Gone was a good book. I would recommend as a thriller for sure. I'm gonna put it here. This Is How It Always Is was one that started off so strong to me and ended like a little bit weird. It's a literary fiction book about a family. Is it iffy? Was it a little iffy? I'm gonna put it at the top of iffy because the beginning I really, really liked. It's in 3 parts or 4 parts, and I remember loving part 1, part 2 being good, and then part 3 being like, no. Tomorrow, great read. Would definitely recommend, not to everybody, but I would recommend to a lot of people. And I am going to put it here. Yep. Right there. That feels right to me. Okay. True Biz is a book that has a lot of deaf culture in it. It is about a hearing woman with deaf parents, a deaf girl who has a cochlear implant, a deaf boy who does not have a cochlear implant, and I took American Sign Language in college, and so reading this I was able to really connect to the story with things that I've learned. And I would recommend it because I do think that people need to learn these things about deaf culture. But there were certain parts of the book that I didn't like. So I'm going to put it here. I would recommend it, but not my absolute fave. Twilight was also iffy. It's going to go right there next to New Moon. Unsteady was a Kindle Unlimited romance that I actually ended up finding like so much cuter than I thought I would. I'm gonna put it and gave what it needed to give, and I'm gonna put it here. Yes. We Deserve Monuments was one of the best books that I read this year, and it's going straight up to inject into my bloodstream. I absolutely loved that book, and it was Jas Hammond's debut novel, which is insane. What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez unfortunately ended up being a just no for me. I really liked the characters, but the plot was not there. What Lies in the Woods, I am going to put in at the end of Gave What It Needed to Give because I really, really liked that story, but then there was a cop romance that ruined it for me. So it was just okay. Wild Lake by Laura Lippman. This is a local thriller author, and I really like this book because it took place near where I reside, but all in all, it was not the best written book, and I would put it in iffy, probably like here. Yes. Oh, Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I absolutely adored that book. Whoops. Ooh, I'm scrolling. Okay. I absolutely adored that book. That's going right into inject this into my bloodstream. And last but not least, Yerba Buena. This was a great read, super sad, but really good nonetheless. And I am going to put it right here. I would recommend it. Okay, so here are the 109 fiction books that I read this year, tier ranked, and I hope that you enjoy this video. I hope that you had a great time watching. I will see you in my next video.